Hey folks, Jonathan here working on the Champ forklift. We're going to see if we can get this thing unstuck. Let me see, I cleaned it out. I've been letting it sit with some transmission fluid in it. And I have pulled the starter off. So I'm going to see if I can work the engine back and forth a little bit and see if we can get it freed up at all. Alright, you give me a big bar. Alright folks, we was able to turn it over using a big bar, and luckily the pistons went down, the front and the back, 1 and 6, which is the two that are the worst. And now we can at least get the cylinders cleaned out before we come back up with them. I think it's all going to be okay though. I mean, it don't look great, but it's cleaning up. You know, all the rust will clean out, I'm sure. We'll have her unstuck, and we'll make sure and get everything cleaned up and get all the valves cleaned up, and then hopefully we can start going back together with this thing. We're fighting the weather, and I've been fighting being sick, so you know, I've worked on this thing on and off a little bit for a couple 3 days, and just can't seem to get much done. But anyway, we start getting this thing back together here before too long. Once we get everything cleaned up, and then we'll find a carburetor for it. Alright folks, so I don't know how long it's been. Probably, I think a total of about 12 days, 13 days or something like that. I've been in bed with fever, 104, 102, well, all different amounts, and been fighting this stuff, and come out here every once in a while and mess with it, but I think I'm about through with it now. I don't have a lot of energy and dehydrated, but as for the having a fever and sore throat and stuff, all that's gone. So anyway, I don't know what it was. Could have been COVID, maybe not, who knows. But anyway, what we're going to do now, we still got valves stuck. I did get the starter off, rolled the engine over using a bar, was able to get it back on and roll it over. It's not wiping the cylinder great, so I mean, it's going to be low on compression, but if we can ever get it started, it might clear up, you never know. But pretty rough from sitting. I mean, that water got in it and definitely made a mess with it. So I picked up some PB Blaster. We're going to spray around them valves and start trying to get some of these valves unstuck and see what we can do from there. We got to come up with carburetor. I got a carburetor somewhere we can put on this thing. Alright, so we still got 4 of them that's stuck pretty darn hard. We're probably just going to let it sit here, give it a day or two, and try it again. Sounds terrible too, like it might be a rod hammer, and I don't know. So it's just a guess. Could be one of the valves making noise, but I don't know. We'll see. Alright. Okay folks, I'm back again. Let me see. This has been 21 days. I spent 14 days in bed. And I would get up every once in a while and mess with this for just a little bit, and then that was it. I couldn't handle it. So I don't know what I had. I'm not saying I had anything. I'm just saying that I didn't go to the doctor. Let me see, the first 5 days was a fever up to about 104, and then the following week after that was pretty much not much fever, just sore throat, and then I got to where I didn't have an appetite, so I ended up staying in bed way longer than I wanted. Felt pretty bad, and then I was having trouble getting my energy back. That was a lot of it. And then of course motivation is kind of hard to do too, because you know, to play with your mind. So I'm back, and you know, I've got severe emphysema. I was diagnosed 2.5 years ago, whenever I quit smoking, and so I'm sure that didn't help anything. You know, I've been up and working as much as I can. I did get this unstuck. Don't know, I can't remember where I stopped on the videos, but I mean, I may have already showed you that, but it's unstuck, rolling over, but I've got 4 valves that are sticking pretty hard. I'm going to show you the cylinder walls, and we'll show you the reason I'm going to do what I'm going to do. All right. Okay, so here's what we got. Hopefully you'll be able to see. We cleaned it up some. You can see the marks on the cylinders. There's some pitting on the back one. The valves, I got, like I said, there's 4 of them that just will not move. I mean, I got 2 that'll go down and then come back up, but I've got 2 that's just so tight that without pulling them out and cleaning everything up, I wouldn't trust it. The block's bored 30 over already. I think everything would be okay. I mean, it would last and run and all that, but I've got another option that I think I'm going to go with that it's going to be a little better option. So I don't know if you can see on the far side of this bell housing, but it's going to have a round SAE pattern, and I'm not sure whether it's a 1 or 2 or 3. I don't know how to. They make a 1 or 2 or 3 and a couple others, I think, but either way, it's a round SAE pattern. So I went and picked up another engine with the round SAE pattern that I think I can make. Well, I know I can make work. We can, you know, build something, machine it. I actually done a forklift one time. I took a 3-cylinder Ford engine out and put a 4-cylinder John Deere engine in. Now the Ford was gas, the John Deere was diesel, and I didn't know it, but the guy stopped by the other day and I was talking to him, and it was actually a Champ forklift. So it was one of these. It was just a smaller version. And so this one, the plan is to put a Herc cylinder in place of this. This is 265 cubic inch. We're going to go back with 364 cubic inch. So we're going to go back with a bigger engine. What we've got on this thing, to make it simple, is an engine, a reverser transmission, and then a 4-speed transmission with no reverse in it. And then we've got a short drive shaft. So we're going to take this panel off. We're going to pull the whole engine, transmission, reverser out. We'll get everything adapted over to the other engine, and then we'll set everything back in one piece. And we're going to make some mounts. We've got some other issues that I'll show you going on. Here's our engine now. This is supposed to run good. We're going to start this thing up on the ground here in a little bit. And a few things about it. Now, this is, I think, came out of a Hyster forklift, and at least probably as big as this one, probably bigger. One of the things about it, these are usually pretty bulletproof, and it's a pretty clean engine. It's not terrible dirty or anything like that. The guy I got it from, Bobby Main, everybody knows, or should know on here, and he was doing some junking for a guy and at a wood yard or something, and they started this one up. It ran good, so he shut it down, pulled the engine out. He said the rear hogshead was missing or tore out, or maybe the transmission or something, but either way. Okay, what we've got here is a vacuum pump, which is a good thing. We're going to need that because we've got vacuum brakes on this, power brakes, and they're vacuum operated like a 2-ton truck, except they've only got them, of course, on this axle. So that's only one axle to have to redo the brakes on. So they're probably going to be redone before it's over with, I wouldn't doubt. What it's got is a hydrovac, is what it's called, that this runs. And instead of, because a diesel, you're not going to pull any vacuum off the manifold like you would a gas engine. So that's why it has that. Now, my problem, the things I'm going to run into. One thing is I see there's no bell housing mounts on here. The chances of this mounting to the same engine, you know, that the engine that's in there, slim to none, because this is where our starter mounts. So we will probably have to build some brackets to come off here to do the mounts, which is not an issue. I may or may not have to machine inside the flywheel, or maybe even put a plate on top of the flywheel, and I'll have to show you that as we go. But this, I don't think it never had a clutch. It actually just had a torque converter bolted in. So this would have had a shuttle shift instead of a clutch. So we've just got to set up a clutch, pressure plate, throw out bearing. We'll have to get everything set up in there. And no place for a pump, to run a pump off this. Remanufactured. So that's been remanufactured before. So not a big deal. But anyway, the pump-wise, what our plans are, this actually had a little drive shaft on the front that ran to the pump, so that's what we're going to do. I'll show you the pump here, and if it's a different rotation, we can change rotations by putting a different pump on, of course. I can't really tell on this. I would say, if I was guessing, it's probably all gear drive. So probably the crank gear, there's one above it on the cam, and then it runs off the cam. So this would run the same direction as the engine. So that would run clockwise, looking at the front of it. So if I turned it around and ran it, it wouldn't run clockwise, it'd run counter, so it would be backwards. So we may have to go with a different pump. Now this is a dual pump. One thing we can do, this pump out here is just for power steering. This is for lifting and lowering, you know, lifting the boom up and down, or the forks up and down. So one thing we can do is just run a pump on the front of the engine and run it to run the lift, and then we can run a regular power steering pump or belt driven or something like that if we need to run the power steering. A complete different hydraulic setup, because you don't want them together anyway. They're going to be separate. So unless you run a tandem pump, you can't really run it unless you run a diverter valve or run a equalizer, and you don't want to really do none of that because you don't want to pull away from the other hydraulic system. So that'll be the plan, is to run a different pump or run whatever I've got to run. But I'm going to make sure that that's not the right rotation before I go through all that trouble. All you have is a suction and a pressure line. We can extend to them. I looked it over pretty good, and this could come out. The pump could mount in here if it needed to. We could actually redo the radiator, or even buy an aluminum radiator if it came to it. So I'm not too worried about it. The main thing would be to get the engine set in and get it in lengthwise. That engine's a little bit longer. We don't have much room on the drive shaft to shorten, but we can go an inch or so. Wait for a race car to go by. We can always get it all in, and then we'll work with this end afterwards. And we'll move the engine, forward as far as we can move it. But that's the plan on this. But we got to start this up first. I think that covered everything. Hydraulic pump. Like I said, we've got a vacuum pump. That's good. And the point is I don't want to have to come out here and mess with the carburetor if I can keep from it, or points or nothing like that. If I can just, a diesel is so much more dependable. If you come out, start it up and go, and that's what we're trying here. So we're gonna fire this thing up and see if it runs. Oil. Yep. Not bad. think it'll work. Been sitting up a long time, so. But that's not bad at all. Showing good oil pressure. It's hard to read the gauge, so I didn't even try to get the camera on it, but I think it'll work. Don't see any issues with it, and you know, it's not real loud, especially to be a non-turbo. Figured it'd be louder than that, but I think we'll be fine. We're just gonna have to get her mated up and start getting her in. All right, well, kind of a pain to start, but I guess if you had a good fuel pump on it, you know, the manual fuel pump had a mechanical, and then if you had an electric fuel pump, which is what evidently they had on this, you can bleed it out easier. But what was happening was I had my squeeze bottle and was getting fuel in here, but because fuel comes out here, I think instead of it, you know, it wasn't like it was draining off the bottom. So once it got down a little bit, it was sucking air instead of pulling the fuel down lower in the filter. So that's why I had to keep some pressure on it. I'm just fine with this. We'll go ahead and get the engine and transmission out of the forklift, and we'll film that, and we'll go ahead and start getting this thing swapped out. And so we'll get something we can use around here. I need it pretty bad. All right, appreciate everybody watching. Till next time. Bye.